Let us build a bridge of music and let us cross it with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us right another wrong. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines, for allowing us to use that on our programming. That was Bill Staines with Bridges, and this is Bridges Programming, and this is Wednesday World Call in. And this is we're on Google Hangouts, and we have Skype as well, Bridges Programming 1 for Skype, and you can call in on that. We are going to be talking about Syria today, and Dennis Carius is with us. Hello, Dennis.
Hello, Dennis.
And Susan Coman. I'm Jeff Beller, one of your hosts. And Dennis brought up a point prior to the show when we phoned him up, something about we have the second largest population in New York State for Puerto Ricans. Refugees. And
New York.
I don't like the word refugees.
No.
I really don't like that, and I don't think that,
because that actually stigmatizes
right,
people who are in desperation.
Let me ask you a question of Dennis, because we're going to be talking about Syria and refugees and all that stuff later on. But how come that Puerto Rico or any part of the world has a boundary? Who set the boundary?
And why?
Why is there a boundary? Wow. Well, maybe there is no boundary. Depends on your definition of boundaries.
Okay, well, we have the state of Puerto Rico, and then we have people there who are very poor. Now, is poverty a nature-made thing, or is it a man-made thing?
Poverty?
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, 99% of us would say that it's man-made, but maybe the upper 1% would say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So I mean, but
depending on where you're looking from.
But what I'm asking you though is it? How do I bring this out? That whether it's man-made or if it's man-made, then there's no such a thing as poverty.
It's not a natural state.
It's not a natural state, because if people were left alone without money, they would work together and they would supply food for one another.
And there would be nothing that looks like poverty.
And they would just get along real well, like in poverty-stricken nations where there's no money, but they have no money, but they play music and they have fun together and they have children, and
they do gardening
and they garden,
share what they've got.
And they wouldn't be considered poor, would they?
Right.
And of course, let me ask you a question. You live in a town close to my town, right, Dennis?
Yes. Right.
And would you consider, if you moved across, let's suppose you live in a town called Bethlehem, and then someone lived in a town called Del Mar, who did God or nature draw the boundaries between Del Mar and Guilderland, or Del Mar and Bethlehem?
No, I would say no. The government drew those boundaries.
So they're not really nature's boundaries. They're just artificial boundaries so they can set up laws for that community. Regulations.
Right.
And in some communities, they have different laws. I mean, like in let's say Syria, they're saying we're going to kill you if you don't do this, and the United States will we'll kill you if you don't do this, and if you don't wear a seatbelt, you're going to get a ticket. And I don't think they have those same rules in let's say, Afghanistan or anything. I don't think they worry too much about that.
Oh, or in New Zealand for
Or
that
New
matter.
Zealand for that matter. Or
They
anywhere.
don't
I
even
mean,
put up
so
guardrails.
there are different laws for different rules for different people. And who makes the laws are the rulers or the pirates or the, I don't know.
And that actually, that term ruler goes right back to the king's foot.
Right.
The king's foot was the first ruler, essentially. His actual foot was the foot that you see on your ruler, the length of it. So
And
whatever
that was the
king that
measurement,
was, he had a foot long, essentially, or thereabouts. And so it comes to us, even now, when you pick up your ruler, you're actually going all the way back to when that concept originated, that the king's foot would be the mean of that measurement. Interesting.
But
Point.
I just wanted to bring that.
Certainly.
My answer would be that it used to be our politicians who would make those rules, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, you know, in the Senate or the House of Representatives, they would make those rules. It was our politicians. But now, I agree with Occupy Wall Street, Occupy all these different groups that say it's no longer the left versus the right. It's the upper 1/10% who's even telling our politicians what to do.
Well, that's because they're the other ones.
They're economically advantaged.
Right.
And are in the position to.
In other words, if you want to, you know, for instance, look at all those signs, those lawn signs you see to vote for somebody. And they used to tell you they're Democrat or Republican. They don't even say that anymore.
No, they don't.
When you went to look at a business, it would say Ace Hardware, or they would say
lumber, or they'd say
lumberyard, or someone
fabricating.
So they would name
plastics.
the name of the person or the people or the group who owns the hardware store.
Or the factories.
Or the factories, and they would tell you what the factories do.
Right.
But they don't do that anymore. They say ABC Corp, and they put a big gate outside so you don't know what they do. And that way you can't, and then they don't let you in, especially the big corporations. You have to go through contortions to get to see somebody who's in charge. And then if you want to do a story on them, on what they do, they say there's no comment. So there's something radically wrong, isn't it, with the system that doesn't allow the transparency to see what a business does? If they're, let's say, making nuclear weapons, or they're making GMOs, or they're making
well, even if they're producing chemicals,
or chemicals,
harmful, and then they ship them.
And then if you want to find out what chemicals they're making, you can't get that okay. And then, so there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And if it's beneficial to make money with, they don't really care how many people they kill, right?
Wow, you're right. I mean, if things get dysfunctional, we need to reform.
But it's not dysfunctional. It works fantastically well
under the criteria of economics.
For the economic system.
Right.
I mean, there was a guy on a lawyer.
Just following the rules of capitalist economics.
You know, there was a congressman, and he happens to come from New York State in Plattsburgh, and he's now an attorney. I'm sorry, I forgot his name off the top of my head. And I heard him speak on, believe it or not, NPR, and they immediately put a disclaimer out against him. And he was talking about how things are so, that things are very functional for the very wealthy. Mm-hmm. And very dysfunctional for everybody else. Now, once we understand that, then we can stop saying it's dysfunctional. We have to say it's very functional for the very wealthy people.
And interestingly,
well, no, I want to finish my thought. That he also said that supposing it's been set up like this. In other words, if we continue to say we have a dysfunctional government, then let's do away with government. And that may be the whole premise of why these think tanks are letting us keep on saying it's dysfunctional. Because then we can do away with government and government regulations.
Right, and it all becomes corporations.
And corporation rules. So by you saying it's a dysfunctional government and people saying that, you're playing right into the hands of the very wealthy again. Because they'll just get rid of the government if it's dysfunctional, right?
Okay, so I great.
No, you should say
No,
the dysfunctional economic
you can say
system.
we have a dysfunctional economic system which is controlling our government, and we have to change the economic system.
It's like having a dictator. It's like countries like Syria who have a dictator who is unwilling to do anything but what is advantageous to himself, his family, and his cohorts at his own status. And this is what's been going on in Syria for, ever since Assad, I think his name is, came into power, and he took power from his own father. So these are dynasties that go on for 20, 50, 100 years.
And they control the public.
And he's come in, he says, oh, I'm going to make it more democratic, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. But meanwhile, it's not happened, and many, many years have gone by, and people are getting poorer and poorer, and they have had a rule in place for, and I'm not going to say how long it was, but I just read this. It sounded to me like it's been in place for almost 80 years. That they can't have more than 5 people gathering anywhere at a time, so that people can't assemble in any bigger than 5 people, and then they'll be arrested.
But our unions used to be able to picket places, and they stopped no more than 5 people and not in front of a door.
Right.
And that's been in place for 30 years.
Right.
So we are going to a dictatorship.
No, the dictatorship is being organized, and the rules are systematized by our economics. It's interesting. What I wanted to add to that was recently in the news, and it's getting so much play, an individual has said, oh, I'm not going to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. And so she was jailed, and it's on religious grounds, whatever. But this is the same thing. People are, not only are the elites stepping away from the laws that the government has passed, but individuals are starting to step away from it too, because they imitate the most powerful structure that's available. Right now, the most powerful structure doesn't appear to be our government in this country of the United States. It's the economics of corporations. So this individual is imitating the behavior of these elite corporation managers and owners, and she's saying, I don't need to I think I'll just do what I feel like doing, even though I've taken an oath that I'm going to uphold the laws of the country that I'm living in.
Laws of the land.
Why in the world she didn't just become a preacher?
This is a double-bladed sword.
Right.
Because she's upholding her belief systems. Then if you're going to hold only your belief systems, you should not run for judge. You should be a preacher about your belief systems. Right. However, you have the Pope who's saying we have to get rid of the economic system because it's not because it's killing people. Now, there's total mixed emotions, and every time we have a president elected, a presidential election, we bring up this gay rights thing, and then we have Huckabee,
right.
And now he's jumping on the bandwagon about religion, and he's supporting her. But the reality is that that's a belief system. My feeling is, and it's again my feeling, if I'm a truly religious human being, and I have to believe that anyone who does anything, it's not my right to judge another person. So if a woman, for whatever reasons, decides not to have a child be born into this world, that's in her body, that's between her and her maker. It's not for me to judge that. Now, there are people who would stone somebody for helping the woman have an abortion. Now, that, in my term, is killing a live human being. And I was in a store yesterday picking up a shirt, and I got talking to a woman, and she thought that the HRM was a very good idea, that we have to stop killing people. On the same term, she said, well, you shouldn't. She wasn't concerned about killing people in a foreign country. She was concerned about killing the unborn. I said, well, that is not, why don't we stop killing the people who are born and alive already, why are you going to worry about someone's personal choice? So that's one of the. Matter of fact, I like the Independence Party in New York State because they won't talk about personal choices. If you want to be, your personal life is personal choice is up to you. It has no bearing on politics. It's a belief system. So that's another.
Well, these are the distractions that always come
Now
out
let's get to the
before
reality.
an election.
Let's get to the reality because we already spent. I can't believe it. We already spent 15 minutes on this project.
Okay, let me just read.
Before you do, I want to tell people stuff. You're listening to Bridges Programming. This is Wednesday World Call In. We're going to be talking about, and this is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure. Human Renewable Energy Measure. It's on your screen right now, or the HREM.org. Renew the Earth is one of our nonprofit groups we work with to talk about renewable energy and stuff like that. And you can do programming on Bridges Programming, bridgesprogramming.com, which is a for-profit company that we want to have a humanitarian station. So whatever you have, you can join us on Bridges Programming. Okay, I think we've covered the detail of what's going on here. We're going to be doing everything, by the way, as we see right now on Hangouts on air. So we are now we're doing it live now. You can see us live and call in. And we're also being archived. So whatever you could do to get the message out about Bridges Programming and the HREM.org, we appreciate that. And then there's a book on the screen that says Illyria's World. That's about climate change, which Susan wrote. It's a free download. We're not trying to make money on it. And you can go to Bridges Programming and download it, or you can go to Renew the Earth and download it. And every month there's an Earthlings letter about for children and their parents to talk about
nature and what help children become comfortable with all the different creatures and plants.
Okay, now you can. I just wanted to get all that out of the way.
Not be so afraid of spiders.
Yeah, don't be afraid of spiders or ants or even if you're allergic to bees. Make sure you cover yourself, but don't worry about it. Don't just make sure you have the right
cohabitate with all the creatures on this planet.
Live with all your fellow men and fellow insects and stop killing people.
Right, that could be a barometer for living with our fellow humans, is how we react to the other creatures on this planet around us. Yeah.
And how we act to our not only our species, but our climate. That's without our good climate, without clean water, good food, or reasonably good food, and clean air, we're not going to live here. We're going to be dead. This planet will be gone.
No, the planet will be here.
I mean, the population will be gone.
Our species.
But and I don't think we can get to another planet because if we don't.
Because Dennis, you're not working fast enough on that airship.
You got to get that airship built real fast before. We have to not cooperate. We have to see. All you have is two people working on the airship because they're not cooperating. So that's
nobody else wants to join in.
But if you've got people working together as in cooperation, we may be able to save our species and then maybe help save the planet. Okay, does that make sense to you, Dennis?
Well, it does make sense to Dennis. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, I'm going to go to our question today. It's about time for that. What do we know about Syria is the question. And I wrote a couple of questions about the question here. What is our country doing for or against Syria? 3 years of civil war and 9 million refugees. It could be more than that. That's just an estimate. Hundreds of thousands of dead from the conflict. Is the United States helping in any way? Are we taking in refugees? Why not? What is going on here? So those are the challenges. Those are some of the questions. And another question is, where's the compassion? Why is a group of people in desperation of those numbers referred to collectively as refugees. They're
Yeah.
not called people anymore. They're not called individuals in desperation.
They're not people who have children
They're
and
called,
have mothers and
right,
fathers
families
and get sick and have to
everyone-
eat food
right,
and
as an
have need
individual
shelter.
story.
Why are they refugees? Why do we change names?
Why do we change from people, individuals, to a collective reference, refugees, like it's some kind of a organism that's descending on
Aliens,
Exactly.
illegal aliens,
Yeah,
coming from a different world.
So right away,
They
the word is creating anxiety.
People don't come from different worlds. They come from the same planet we do.
Yeah.
They have the same needs and that we have. They have the same aspirations that we have. But we have these artificial boundaries based on economics that say, okay, I'm going to control my country and I'm going to do it economically. So what happens is you'll check this. Syria, by the way, has killed, the damage in Syria is very similar. 6 million people have been expelled or hurt or killed.
There's more than that.
More than that?
It's, there's all kinds of numbers now.
It's a lot of people. It's millions of people.
UN estimates
I can't figure out what a million is. It doesn't matter. It's a lot of people being killed. It's like everybody.
That's refugees. I'm just talking refugees.
It's like
killed is hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of people.
Maybe 200, 300.
Dennis, do you know how many hundreds of thousands of people are in your neighborhood?
Well, to be able to visualize.
Okay,
that.
so let's figure that. For argument's sake, let's say that everybody in your neighborhood, by two people, they had like somebody was talking the other day at lunch. Someone comes in with a gun and goes to shoot them. Well, they have to defend themselves or they have to run. So what's happened is that government had maybe one person for every 100 people with a gun and said, get out of here.
Right.
So that means all you have left is maybe one per every time. There's nothing more left in your neighborhood, but maybe 100 cops with guns, and they're shooting people out. If they don't get out, they're going to get shot. So now you have an entire neighborhood which is totally empty. Your whole town moved from, let's say, Bethlehem to Del Mar,
right.
And Bethlehem is now empty.
Right.
And then Bethlehem said, "Wow, we got too many people here. Go to the next town."
Del Mar is saying,
right? Del Mar, we got to go to the next town.
We can't deal with
because we can't deal with all these people. And then they go to the next town,
right?
And the next town said, "Well, how are we going to afford to pay for all these people?"
At this point, the amount of refugees is equivalent to or more than the refugee tragedy of Rwanda genocide.
Right.
So this has not happened at this kind of magnitude since then. Tragically.
Now, why? The question is why.
Do you want me to do a little bit of history?
Yeah,
get us, because there's one demonstration I'd like to make with the globe, just to give people an idea of what these people who are being referred to as refugees, these people, these individuals who are desperate, what they are actually accomplishing to try to get away from the oppression, the death, the bombing, the chemical warfare, it's horrendous, the torture. When did the crisis start? And I'm reading from a site called Quick Facts, what you need to know about the Syria crisis. But you can find your own reference material very easily. It's pretty much consistent. Anti-government demonstrations began March 2011. And this was part of the Arab Spring, where Egypt was, the Egyptian people were rising against their government. They had some success with that. And there were several other countries that at that point were trying to get more what they considered democratic representation. And we all define that in different ways, but we know that it has to do with more dignity for the individual, rights, being able to assemble and have freedom of speech and not be shot for it. Okay, here we go. But the peaceful protests, quote, quickly escalated after the government's violent crackdown, and rebels began fighting back against the regime. By July, army defectors had loosely organized, and when they're saying army defectors, it read further in another piece. Actually, I've read several, and I'm not saying I've covered this subject. I'm just trying to get a handle on it, because
an overall view.
Right, and 2011 was what they're saying is the beginning of the Civil War. But what was going on at the very beginning was the army was being told, "Oh, wait, you shoot these civilians." The government was saying, "We've got to crack down, crack down." A lot of the army, the individuals made their own decision and said, "I'm not going to shoot the civilians. I'm not going to, oppress my neighbors. I'm not going to go in here and kill people for the government." And so that's what they're talking about. A lot of them went and joined the civilians in a resistance. This is something very profound.
Let's bring that closer to home. Supposing, Dennis, the government goes to you and says, "Here's a gun, Dennis.
You subdue those people in Delmar."
And you go to your next door neighbor because we think they're evil. And we want you to drop the bomb and throw a bomb into their window. And when they come out, you shoot them. But you can trust me because I'm the government. Now, would you do that?
No, but we're sending kids overseas in the military, and they are doing what they're told to do, because when they couldn't afford college, they were told, just go over in the military for 4 years and you can come back and you'll afford college.
Right.
Now you just hold it. You just brought a very interesting point up, Dennis, about that. To get a better job, you need to go to college in this world. So therefore, the military is controlling people through the economics by saying you can get an education.
But first you got to kill for us.
But first you got to kill for us. Now there's 2 points I want to bring out. What happened was Syria originally said to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and the United Nations that they will not go along with our economic structure. So we took, and then we blamed Syria's. I don't know how true this really is, because this is mainstream media. And mainstream media says that we have to have sanctions against Syria.
We've had them since.
We have to have sanctions against Syria because of their human rights. The reality of the human rights problem is directly related because the
actual dictator
who's in there, or the president, or whoever you want to call him, refuses to work with the World Bank and the IMF. So we are holding human rights as or religious belief or whatever crapola belief system, and we're blaming it on human rights. But the reality is the reason we're against those people, the Syrians and other groups that we hold sanctions against, is so if we can strangle them through economic terrorism, is what we are doing, then they hope to get rid of a dictator that we don't like, and then we can put in one of our own dictators.
Well,
and that's what Dennis says all the time.
The dictator they have, or I don't know how they refer to him, but we're calling him that because he's behaving in that manner.
But he's not.
He is. He's not allowing people to assemble. Right. He's not.
Neither are we, and we're not dictatorship theoretically.
Well, we are.
That's okay.
That's the case.
So let's face that fact that we are all being controlled by the economic system.
So in a way, Al-Assad, I think that's his name, the last name, he is actually playing just the kind of hand that the United States would prefer that he play.
Right.
And so he's working right into that. He's actually, they are members of the UN and the World Bank and the IMF.
Well, look what they did to Chavez.
And so he is cooperating with those organizations, as far as I can read here. And none of that is benefiting his country. And now they're in civil war because the people are
it's all about
being
economics.
exploited and made. And so here we go. I'm going to quote from this again, this piece that I was reading from. More than 4 years after it began, the full-blown civil war has killed over 220,000 people, half of whom are believed to be civilians. Bombings are destroying crowded cities, and horrific human rights violations are widespread. Basic necessities like food and medical care are sparse, well, also sheltered, obviously. People are being displaced. They have nowhere to live. They have no food. Medical care at that point is almost a luxury. If you have nowhere to live and no food, my gosh. The UN estimates that 7.6 million people are internally displaced. And that's internally. And the people that have left are 9 million or more. In the region's two smallest countries, weak infrastructure. Okay, most of them who have left, the refugees that have left, are living in Jordan and Lebanon. And these are the region's two smallest countries. Weak infrastructure and limited resources are nearing breaking point under the strain. And that's what we're hearing about. People are going further now. They're going through Turkey. They're getting to Greece. They're going across, may I just make a demonstration? They're going now in desperation. Individuals are leaving, and I got to bring this globe here because this will give some idea.
Hold on, let me back this up a bit. Maybe you can get a better shot of it.
This is just, when I realized, looking at the globe, let me find.
Okay, now you got a better shot. Take a look in the video.
Okay. Here we've got.
You're in front of the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here we've got the Mediterranean. Here is the country of Syria.
So put your two hands on it so people can see it.
On what? And this is the full Mediterranean to this finger here. Here's Syria. Individuals are now, in such desperation that they're going in the Mediterranean.
From where Susan's right hand is.
Right here.
They're leaving. Where her left hand's going.
No, I'm not going to show you that yet. Okay, here we go. First, they go through Turkey. They try to get, asylum, a safe place here. Turkey felt overwhelmed and is pushing them off the coast.
Toward the camera, so
okay.
It's right on the light now.
I'm sorry. Camera. This way?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, Syria. Okay, they've gone through Turkey. Now they're in the Aegean, the Aegean Sea, which is part. It of course is right next to Greece, and they're trying to get to Greece. Then Greece is overwhelmed. It has all kinds of problems of its own. They're going all the way to Italy. Italy has its policies and was taking some refugees, but okay, here's Syria. We're all the way over here now. This how many people have drowned and died just trying to get to any place where they can feel safe and find the shelter and food. Okay, now we're hearing, okay, Germany's saying, yes, they can come. Here's Germany up here. Yes, they can come. France is making, yes. People are trying to get to England. Look how far. Okay, now compare that. Okay, here we are. Here we are in New York. We would have to go all the way to California to get someplace where we feel safe.
Hopefully feel safe.
This is so overwhelming when you see, what these individuals are suffering.
This requires more than a 30-second bite on NPR.
And you get no sense of the distances and the courage of individuals.
And the hardship.
And the desperation. You get no sense of that. They're just saying, okay, refugees, amorphous cloud of something. No, these are people. These are individuals in desperation. They're civilians like us.
Like you and I, like your children, like your grandparents.
Right. And most of them, they were just, fighting, living their lives, and now all of a sudden they have no place to live. no food. If they can even make any effort, make this effort, this amazing effort to travel to any of these places, those are the privileged few in themselves, and many of them, it turns out, are the young men, because they're strong and they can, they're independent for the most part, and of course they're trying to get away from the possibility of being pressed into any of these rebel groups and made to fight. So they're trying to avoid that. They've got enough energy and stamina to make these overland treks and these overwater voyages, maybe some of them. And so Germany is saying, okay, these are young men. We'll take in, I don't know, they said some number recently.
We can make money on them.
And they're doing it because, this is going to do us some good in the future. Once we train them and et cetera, they'll be part of the workforce and productive.
They'll make money for us.
And they'll be, an asset to
Why
Germany.
But
they're talking in terms of economics again. But there's compassion. There's more compassion, there's the desire.
Not compassion enough, but it's still we are still for some reason have
everything
to
has to
relate
be put in terms of economics,
right? And that's not the
and by doing that, you make objects out of people. You make amorphous masses out of individuals that are suffering. Like
everything that we talk about is related to the economics, like the occupying movement. It's not fair economically. It's not fair. Dennis talks about the 1%ers who have millions who want to make billions. We talk about how we're going to pay for this. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they said, "Well, how do you pay for this? How do you protect what's yours? Supposing someone comes in and wants to rob me." Well, again, you're talking about economics. If everybody had their basic needs met, and their wants may be different, but they're not going to. The killings wouldn't be as much, or the robberies wouldn't be so much, because people's basic needs are met. So that's where we're coming from here, and there's no, like you mentioned the military earlier, that they have to get an education. Well, the reason why they want an education, in most cases, is not to learn more. It's to make money. They need to get the education, so they take out these big loans. Hopefully, they'll pay them back, and they can make more money and work less hours. And that's why people buy stocks, so they can make money without working harder for it or working for it. It's all about the economic system. Now, hopefully we'll have the whole encyclical up for the Pope, but I recommend everybody reads the Pope's 98 or 96-page encyclical with a few pages for where he gets his information, the glossary. But you should be reading that, because the Pope is saying the same things we are. He's saying that the economic system is not working, and it's killing our environment, and it's killing people around the world. And it's obvious. And if we continue to do this, we will not be here. There's an old movie called On the Beach, and humanity had wiped themselves out. And the wind is still working, and it's blowing a sign that was put up by, I think, the Salvation Army, and it said, "There's still time, brother." Well, I'm telling you that right now, there's still time, brother.
But I think if it was put up by the Salvation Army, they were saying it's time to repent.
Yes, yeah. I'm not saying
you're not saying it's time.
I'm saying there's still time to use your mind.
And to save our species.
And to save our species, right.
Let me please read a little bit more to give people an overall view of what the individuals who are leaving Syria are facing, going through, trying to survive. We already said that most, a lot of them at the very beginning, in 2011, were heading to Jordan, Lebanon, close by countries, but they're under great strain now and can't take any more refugees. In August, and here I'm reading this, August 2013, more Syrians escaped into northern Iraq at a newly opened border crossing. Now they are trapped by the country's own insurgent conflict, and Iraq is struggling to meet the needs of Syrian refugees on top of more than 1 million internally displaced Iraqis. An increasing number of Syrian refugees are fleeing across the border into Turkey, and that's what I was showing you on the globe, overwhelming urban host communities and creating new cultural tensions. Hundreds of thousands of refugees are also attempting the dangerous trip across the Mediterranean Sea from Turkey to Greece, hoping to find a better future in Europe. Not all of them make it across alive. Those who do make it to Greece still face steep challenges. Resources are strained by the influx and services are minimal. And of course, we've been hearing all about Greece's being strangled by the economics. One more section, how are people escaping? Thousands of Syrians flee their country every day. They often decide to finally escape after seeing their neighborhoods bombed or family members killed. The risk on the journey to the border can be as high as staying. Families walk for miles through the night to avoid being shot at by snipers or being caught by soldiers who will kidnap young men to fight for the regime.
This is just like they did in the gladiator days, by the way. It's the same thing that happened 5,000 years ago when civilization started, and the kings and the pirates took people to go sailing with them. They would throw them overboard if they didn't work on the ships. If they didn't fight for them, they would shoot them in the head, or they'd cut their head off, just barbarians, just same barbarian aspect as we have today. But we have as a species know better. We know better. We know we don't have to do this kind of insanity. We know better, not because we're religious, not because we're smarter. We know better because we've evolved to say there's enough stuff for people to survive within cooperation. Stop this competition. Get rid of borders. Get rid of them. You don't need fences up or gates up. You need to make sure all humanity becomes economic.
Now, what would happen? I mean, we have, as a country, the United States.
I want to finish that thought. We need to be economical. That doesn't mean we have to make more stuff. We need to make sure our economy gives you the best technology we can muster for no cost. The best technology right now would be solar panels on every single community. Have the most efficient cars. That is your best efficient economical way of survival. Not making money, to work in cooperation with companies. Anyone working harder would have a better quality of life. But people who don't have the ability to work harder would still have the best technology we can muster. Not the best technology money can buy. The best politicians should be in place to make sure that the best technology, the most efficient, economical way, not money, the best technology man's mind can put forth to help humanity worldwide. And then you stop this movement of people because they're being shot. I mean, I'm hoping we just have to imagine this, but if you can imagine, Dennis, what would happen if the police department decided, because they had a tyrannist, let's suppose we had someone named Donald Tyranny runs the country. You know what I'm talking about, Donald Tyranny. And we just elected Donald Tyranny into office, right?
You don't mean Donald Trump.
No, I don't want
Donald Warbucks.
Donald Warbucks, or Donald Tyranny. Let's call him Donald Tyranny. And Donald Tyranny says, I want to build a wall in Delmar, between Delmar and Bethlehem. And I'm going to get rid of all those stupid people who I feel is stupid, and I'm going to hire the Army and Navy and cops to start shooting people. And all of a sudden, everyone leaves Delmar and they go to the borders or the other side of the fence to Bethlehem to stay alive. Well, there wouldn't be very many good people left in Delmar. They'd be going to Bethlehem, and then the ones who think they're very smart and they have it knocked because the tyranny per person starts to say, well, you can have some of the food here and like that. Same problem. We're killing people. And you don't want to do that. You don't need to build walls. You need to make sure the best technology is is make sure the whole humanity has the best possible technology around the world. Stop killing one another. Stop going into competition. It's very simple. And I think Obama said this sort of mixed emotion thing about a month ago. I heard him say this. And it was in one news broadcast, which was amazing. His words were, we have to work in cooperation with the rest of the world so they have good human rights. On the very next breath, he said, we have to have the best schooling for our people in this country so we can compete with the rest of the world. Now, those two things don't make sense. If you're going to work within cooperation so everybody has a good quality of life, human rights and whatever, then why would you compete? If I can come up with a better solar panel or a better vehicle or a better way of cooking eggs or a better way of whatever, I want to share that technology with the rest of the world. I don't want to hoard it so I can make more money. I want a good quality of life for everybody, not just myself.
We're squandering the riches of the human mind.
Right.
Right.
So that's what this HREM is all about, the Human Renewable Energy Measure. We must stop killing people. And what you can see happening all over the world, in Greece, in Hungary, in Rwanda, and in parts of Africa, in Syria, in Romania, in all over the world, we're doing tremendous damage to people in the name of economics. And it's not even economical, because if it was truly economical, there wouldn't be these problems. It's not economical to have one person rule the world or be able to buy $1 billion presidency because they have money. It has that, and they built their riches on the backs of other people. So, wow, man, we got a big problem here. Does that make sense to you, Dennis?
Well, it makes sense to Dennis. I mean, that's probably why people would be leaving. If, when they go from Syria to Turkey or Greece, I mean, is it possible that a lot of this might have something to do with oil under the ground?
No.
There?
No.
Well, Jeff, are you being?
Well, it has to do with the money made from the oil under the ground. It has nothing to do with the oil under the ground. It has to do with the money made with the oil under the ground, or the economics of keeping the wealthy people wealthy and control. And they control that with power, and control is controlled by the economic system the way it stands now. But if you put a physical start point within the economic system, in other words, all humanity must have within the economic system their education, food, and shelter for 1 hour of their labor, their minimums need met, the basic needs met. Then you allow your free market to take effect on subjectivity. Yes, it would probably eliminate that. But it's not oil. Oil is just another form of energy which amplifies your labor, and the economic system puts the very wealthy in control to manipulate that money. They also try to manipulate the product, again, to make money. So that's the part that, when I say no, it's not oil, it's money. Oil is a physical function. The actual energy unit in that oil doesn't change, but our economic system manipulates that, so we have to work harder with physical labor to get that, and that's the problem. It's not the oil, it's the money that we tagged it with that is subjective. I don't know if I explained that right.
No, you explained it fine. I just want to make another point about the people that are leaving Syria. More than half are under the age of 18. So most of them are children. More than half. Parents are trying to get their children out of the country. They're
the same way they did in Germany.
Oh gosh. I mean, this is horrendous.
The same way they did in Rwanda. The same way they've done in parts of Israel. The same way they do all over the world, where people are being shot and killed unless they've conformed to that means the UN That means the United States.
The
That
Monetary
means
Fund, the World
United
Bank.
Kingdom. That means the IMF, and that means the World Bank. Unless they conform to our economic system, we are going to have economic sanctions against these countries until they put in the dictators that we want, not the dictators that are there.
Here, now keeping in mind that more than half of this number is under the age of 18, children and young adults. How many refugees are there? 4 million Syrians have registered or are awaiting registration with the United Nations. Now, these are just the ones that have registered. Lots of them have not had the opportunity to do that. They are registering with the United Nations High Commission of Refugees, who is leading the regional emergency response. Every year of the conflict has seen an exponential growth in refugees. In 2012, there were 100,000. By April 2013, there were 800,000. That doubled to 1.6 million in less than 4 months. There are now 4 million Syrians scattered throughout the region, making them the world's largest refugee population under the United Nations mandate. At this rate, the UN predicts that there could be 4.27 million Syrian refugees by the end of 2015, the worst exodus since the Rwandan genocide 20 years ago.
Amazing, and that was 6 billion people.
And there are other numbers. That's just the UN estimates, because I read another number, 9 million refugees.
Well, it doesn't matter. I can't conceive.
No, I can't either, but you have to keep in mind that more than half of them are children.
But to try to understand this, just imagine your entire town being vacated. That all of a sudden, no traffic, no people, stores are closed, the traffic lights don't work. The system is only thing working. You'll see some birds and squirrels and animals go by, and the wind blowing and the sun coming out, but the people are gone. That's what you could imagine. That's an easy thing to see or imagine, but that's what's happening now. I want to ask you, Dennis, are you still watching us online, or did you click off?
Oh, not this instant. I can try before.
Were you online? Were you online before?
Well, I mean,
because we had 2 or 3 viewers. And,
so when you consider this term refugees, and they're trying to make it objectified and make individuals into objects that we don't have to have compassion for. It'll be very easy to have compassion. If you can't have compassion for adult individuals, it would be it's.
And if you're worried about abortion issues,
it's very
worry about the kids
who
are killing.
For children who are more than 50% of these individuals that are being displaced, bombed, killed, poisoned, and these children have lost everything. Some of them have lost, they've lost their families, they've lost their home. They can no longer go to school, obviously. They've been taken away from friends that they've made to that point. This is horrendous, what's happening. What is the United States doing? Are we welcoming refugees? I haven't heard a peep about that yet. I know that we are bombing the area now. Why are we doing that? We want to kill more children? Do we want to displace more people?
Radically wrong.
Do we think that we're so brilliant about our military response that we know where to kill people and where it's best to kill people? This is insanity.
All I can tell you is that we need to think about, continue thinking about why we have the problem. It's directly related to economic system. Our economic system is totally dysfunctional for most populations, the world population, but it is not dysfunctional to the people who are running the world. And that's all I can tell you.
for the empowerment that our Supreme Court has given corporations, saying that they're people and have the same rights as people.
And that means that our government is corrupt, but it's corrupt only, and all governments are corrupt. It's corrupt because it has no value for humanity, which is obvious when you see this exodus and people being killed. People have, and we keep on changing language to call collateral damage. That means killing people and children, by the way. That's what collateral damage means. It means expendable population. That means killing more people. I mean, wake up. If you're worried about abortion issues, my God, man, worry about what we're doing right now. What you, as an individual who understands, looks in the mirror, you are responsible for your actions, and your actions is working within our economic system, and our economic system is killing people around the world, and you are complicitous in your behavior. It gotta stop, and the only way to stop it is to put value into the economic system. It must be done. If you don't do it, you're complicitous in killing people, and don't you ever, ever think that it's the other guy. We, I, you and I look in the mirror, and when we buy a car, or we go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, or we buy a stock, or we do anything at all within our economic system, we are complicitous in killing other human beings. And I know we don't want to be. So how do we stop this insanity? We have to look at facts and say, by the way, it's about energy, it's about the way we think, it's about our belief system in our government, that if we elect the right person, it may stop. It hasn't stopped in this country for 200 or 300 years. It hasn't stopped within our society for 5,000 years. And we are brainwashed into thinking that it's got to be something that we could easily fix. But it's not easily fixed without understanding we need a measurement for humanity. Every human being on this planet requires education, food, and shelter. And so they're not in slavery because of all our technology. Oh, it needs to be within about an hour a day of work, and you have to redefine the word work, because that's also screwed up.
Interestingly, too, I mean, they had a fake presidential election in 2014 in Syria. And for the first time in the history of the country, there was more than one person allowed to stand for the presidential, as a presidential candidate. Normally, it's just one person. I mean, right. You're not voting for anything there. And Bashir al-Assad won the election by 88.7%, and you know, he invited people to watch and see that it was done. But the point is here, most of the population is displaced. The only people that were voting for this guy were the ones who were working for him in the government, and they were all ordered to vote.
Right.
And you can imagine what they were ordered, how they were ordered to vote. You know, if he didn't win, they were going to find out who didn't vote for him, and of course they wouldn't, at the very least, have a job again. You know, this is so bogus.
We have to go out, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis.
And we're doing the same thing with our presidential elections.
We are.
We're no better than this.
We're coming out. Dennis, thank you. Thank you all for listening.
And suddenly the price of oil goes up. Your neighbor's out of work because they closed the factory. You try to stretch your paycheck, but it's never quite enough. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.
We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.